Live from Hatshepsut's temple. You can see all the air balloons back there behind me. Gonna just show you that where the first one's here, besides the two keepers. There's Karina, and turn the camera around so you can see what I'm seeing. Absolutely amazing. We got up early again today to come here for the remnants of the winter solstice alignment. So on the winter solstice, the alignment penetrates the aisle between the pylons. First, it illuminates the statue of Hatshepsut and then goes between the pylons at the Karnak temple where we were yesterday. And then it goes across the Nile River here to the West Bank, and this whole play of light affects right here the Holy of Holies. It will illuminate inside the Holy of Holies. So essentially the light beam comes from the sun, penetrates over the gate through Karnak. It'll all light up in here. Through Karnak, through her statue, through her shrine. We're now turning around. Hey, what's up, man? We're now turning around, and this is where, yeah, a little bit of lag when I went inside the Holy of Holies. So we're in the courtyard here at Hatshepsut's temple. This is the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctum, the most sacred space here. As you can see, it's built into the vertical backdrop, a natural backdrop. Hard to make out here, but anyway, this is the Holy of Holies, and the alignment will take place. The sun will rise here. We will actually get a view of the sun before Karnak because we're on a higher ground looking down, so that when the sun comes up, we'll see it. And you can see the air balloons launching in the distance. Yes, Harv, if you guys were watching yesterday, or if you go back and watch my video, we did the live stream from Karnak yesterday. So Karnak is directly aligned here. This would have been an avenue of sphinxes. Now there's only 2 sphinxes remaining, and it would have been all plants here. It would have been a botanical garden. Hatshepsut was really one of the first to cultivate trees in that way after the Punt expedition. You can see all the air balloons there. But this alignment goes straight from the Holy of Holies. Right back here from the Holy of Holies, straight right down what would have been an avenue of sphinxes, across the Nile River. And actually the alignment would start behind the Holy of Holies on the other side of the mountain where we have the Valley of the Kings. It would have been aligned with her burial to her mortuary temple, across the Nile River, penetrating through Karnak, through the pylons, through the obelisk, through Hatshepsut's shrine, the statues which are illuminated in the back. Absolutely amazing. All these things connected by that which is above, connecting with that which is below. And so shortly the sun will rise right in the center here. This is, thousands of people come to Karnak every day, none the wiser. Many may be familiar with the solsticial alignment. I don't think as many know that it actually connects all the way here to Hatshepsut's temple, or even that it was not a man but a woman responsible for all of this. Her reign was one of the most prosperous, peaceful times in Egypt. It's when they were expanding the borders and working on a foreign trade policy. This is after a bitter time when the ancient Egyptians had 18th dynasty. The 18th dynasty had eliminated the Hyksos. The 18th dynasty starts with Amos when he chased the Hyksos out of Egypt. And so the Egyptians still had bitter feelings of foreigners, but worked to expand the empire in more of a peaceful way during Hatshepsut's reign with Thutmose. And you can see the air balloons in the distance. And we're just going to observe silently and with reverence in just a moment here. This temple, by the way, this temple is built on the plan of an older temple a Middle Kingdom temple by Mentuhotep. It was designed by Hatshepsut's alleged lover and genius architect, the most illumined human, Senenmut. And so this is built on the plan of the remnants of the temple that was right over here, Mentuhotep's temple. You can see the remains. Tutmosis has a temple back there. You used to be able to go and come around from the back of the mountain. I don't know if they do that anymore, but they are working back there. There's some excavations currently going on. Here we can see there's Karina and the keeper. You can see we're some of the only people here. Here you have Hatshepsut and Osiris pose. Yeah. What's up, G? What's up, Truth Seeker? Absolutely beautiful in the background with all of the air balloons. And so, yeah, few are those that know about this. Like I said, more. I was at Karnak yesterday. If you joined me in the live stream yesterday, it's posted to the live video playlist here on this channel. But we went live from Karnak, which is the more well-known alignment. But it actually aligns from Karnak across the river all the way here and beams right through the center here into the Holy of Holies, through the mountain onto the other side where she's buried. And nobody really is aware of that, so I wanted to bring you here and show you. As you can see, there's no one else here. It's just me and my wife, and there's one other person here and the keepers. You know, here's a few of the keepers. Here's my wife in the background. There's somebody inside the Holy of Holies, and that's it. Nobody else is here for this most auspicious day. This would have been a big celebration in ancient times, but no one's here to observe it or even really aware of it. So I just wanted to share this with you guys, and thank you for being part of this special moment. Again, I just too lazy and in a rush this morning, so I didn't bring my gimbal with me, so my hands are a little shaky. I'm trying to hold the camera as steady as possible. And so the sun, you can see how beautiful the sky is already. The sun should be coming up in just a few moments. Yeah, should we go up there and see it?
No, actually,
Yeah.
yeah, the sun would have come up again.
It's beautiful with all that color. You should take some photos.
Yeah, I did look. It looks like a portal. Look at how that fiery red.
Oh, the connection is there. We're all connected in a sense. We're all one. What years was the temple most active? This would have been in the New Kingdom. What's that, around 1550 BC? That might be around the time of Amenhotep III. So this would have been before that. Oh, like 1600s, 1500s BCE. And so the temple was active from the New Kingdom, from the time of Hatshepsut to right up to Greek times, because actually the Greek Ptolemies played a role in building the Holy of Holies. The Greek Ptolemies were still observing, the ancient Egyptian traditions are still considered part of ancient Egyptian civilization, even though they're Johnny-come-latecomers. The last of the indigenous pharaohs was the time of, Nectanebo and those guys. But, Ptolemaic period is a thing in Egyptology, but they weren't really indigenous Egyptians, but they, in a sense, either honored or appropriated the culture and kept it going, kept the traditions, the building traditions. Some things changed, language changed from, well, not entirely, but hieroglyphs get a bit more complex with the Ptolemaic hieroglyphs. But anyway, the sun will be coming up shortly. What time do we have?
It's 6:24, so
6:24.
it should be around 6:30.
It's around 6:30, maybe a little sooner, because I think because we're on a higher plane, we might see it before Karnak, so we might see it a couple of minutes sooner. I think we'll see it better if we go out here, no? So once again, thanks for joining us for this live, everyone. The should be up in the next few minutes. Just gonna take a few photos here. Oops, sorry. Wow, look at this, guys. Absolutely beautiful. All the hot air balloons above Luxor, just moments before the sun rises and gives effect to the temple. So the sun will beam right through here. Get some Coptic here. Beam right through here into the Holy of Holies. You can see this, a little bit of light. And ultimately it'll come right back here and illuminate right in there. Really, what we want to see too is inside, illuminating the statues inside as the sun rises.
I don't know. Do you want to double team? Do you want to be?
I'm gonna run back and forth between the two. I think I will first watch the sun come up. I think I'm gonna go over there, out there, watch the sun come up, then come back here, see what it looks like, and then go into the Holy of Holies. Oh, salam. Should just be a few more minutes. What's up, San Diego? You can tell it's Hatshepsut if you look at the feminine form, but she's dressed as the masculine principle, as the king. A transgression. She broke typical temple protocol as a female pharaoh. It was she who adorned the beard, taking on the Assyrian pose here. Absolutely amazing. A new dating online. I missed the previous comment. A new dating for what? I can't see all the comments. I can only see like one or two at a time as they pop up. What's the new dating online? It's PM in San Diego. Yep. That's why when you come to Egypt, here's a pro tip. You always want to really book a day in advance of when you're going to get started, or come in the day before your tour is scheduled, because you really want that day to recalibrate and rest and catch up on the time zone, adjust to the time zone differences, especially if you're flying in from like America. Europe's a little closer in terms of time and distance, but for the Americans, Canadians coming into Egypt, it helps to have, have a fresh start. So come in a day ahead of time to adjust to the time zone. Obviously, I'm already adjusted to it because I live here. Well, actually, I'm not adjusted to this because I usually don't wake up this early. All right, I think I'm gonna go inside the temple, maybe. Can you imagine what it's like to be up in one of those air balloons? They should have an interesting view. I wonder if they can see the beam beaming down on the temple. And so the effect, the remnants of the effect, you can really watch it for about 4 or 5 days or so. 2-3 days in either direction from the winter solstice. So winter solstice was yesterday. What is on the right? You mean over here? I think you're late to the live stream. I did this before, but I'll do it again for you guys that are showing up late. So over here, so we're at the Temple of Hatshepsut, Deir el-Bahari, which was known as Djeser for the ancient Egyptians. That means, in ancient Egyptian, that means the most sacred of sacreds. And it was constructed into the backdrop, the natural backdrop, which we can't really see here, but from a distance you can see all the vertical crevices aligned with the temple. Very impressive architecture in the Victorian era. This was a time when people are looking at Greek architecture and other stuff. Then they got into Egyptian architecture. A lot of the architects really borrowed inspiration from this temple. What you're seeing is largely reconstructed. This is the work of, it's really modern times. A lot of what we're seeing here, they picked the remnants up, put it back together. But this is ultimately the work of Senenmut, the genius architect and alleged lover of Hatshepsut, who constructed or overseen the temple and the workman that was involved in constructing this temple. But he took the design from what was over here. Someone asked what was to the right. He took the design from what was over here. This temple was built in the New Kingdom, but they borrowed the blueprints, or took the blueprints from a Middle Kingdom temple before it. You can see over here, back there is a Tutmosis temple. It's roped off, so we can't really go to the edge anymore. We used to be able to walk over there, but they pushed the rope back here. And they're actually doing excavations back there. You can see the shuffling stuff down. But we had a Mentuhotep temple over here, which laid the blueprint for the building, the foundation of this temple. It was built on the design of an older plan, keeping a much older tradition alive. I'm sure there's still more out there that's unexcavated. It's not fully excavated. Even this was really, it's a recent temple. Look in the distance over there. There's still all tombs. If you look in the distance, you can see some of the openings, some of the tombs there. So right behind this mountain is the Valley of the Kings, and her tomb is aligned with this. They're probably gonna go underneath, but then they hit some trouble and they turned. I think we're coming close to the moment, so I wanna get back into position here. Hope you guys are enjoying this. If you are, please do give it a like. And please remember to not only leave a comment here in the live section, but come back and leave a comment under the actual video. That will help send the signal to YouTube's algorithm and show them that I'm getting some engagement, which will ultimately help the algorithm open up visibility so more eyeballs can see my videos. If people are engaging with the videos in different ways, like leaving a comment under the video and liking it, it's just gonna push the video out to more people, and that way we can get more people introduced to my work and everything I'm doing here. As you guys know, this hasn't been fully sustainable for me, and it's challenging, especially, I have a family to feed, but I'm trying to constantly get this content out for you guys. And so the support helps. So course, the financial support helps. You can do that if you do feel compelled over at Patreon. I have some really cool benefits I put together for Patreon supporters. And or if you're interested in coming to Egypt, coming on one of my tours always helps support. But I understand not everybody's in financial position, and that's fine. Ultimately, my goal here is to share and raise consciousness. So the other way that you can support the channel, though, is by liking, leaving a comment under the video, and sharing the videos. And of course, subscribing if you haven't already done so. And if you're new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Absolutely beautiful. Look at all those air balloons. Okay, so now I'm just gonna fall back and observe with silence for a bit because the sun should be coming up shortly. Uh-oh, my phone just said low battery. Apparently it didn't charge overnight. I hope it doesn't go down before the sun rises. We'll do our best. No Trinity today. She's home sleeping.
ده كان هنا امبارح في كرنك امبارح
هو جينا
3 ايام بتاع سيدنا يونس
بتاعت الحوت دي
ولا كان في العطش والله بتاع سيدنا يونس.
Change it to this. That people will want to look in there with Wi-Fi, so they make sure it would disconnect.
Yeah.
They could disconnect.
As
from
soon as you walk in the
material
portal, you lose connection. Every time I walk in, it cuts out.
to the material world, you know, you're.
I stepped into the spiritual world and the material phone just ceased. This is all Coptic. This is the remnants of, this is all red ochre, Coptic. And this right here is probably real late, because this doesn't even look like hieroglyphs. This looks like hieratic, a demonic hieratic. Not sure. But that's a priest, bald priest, but very late period. You can see this is likely the work of the Copts trying to copy. You can see the difference where it's painted on, and then over here it's carved in, so this is all unfinished, right? There's the paint, and they started carving it and they didn't finish it. You don't want to film that too, so you can film the beam. Yeah, it is a Stargate. See, it says right here, start. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, it does sort of. Seba. No, Seb. Yeah. Seb. Seb with the connecting duat. Seba. star. Hook. It's like a hook. It could be interpreted as a gate. So Stargate. Really a place to connect with the divine. A place to connect to the stars in a sense too. Stargate, Sebagate, Stargate. And that's why when we walk through, we lose connection. Yeah. So just so you guys know, for context, this is a S. Makes like a S sound, and that's the leg. That's B, and you put an E in between. It's a Egyptological convention. So Seba, star, and the other symbol was a symbol that can be interpreted as a gate. So Stargate, star portal, divine connection. This is there's a balloon up there. This is the entrance to the Polish mission. You see Polish Egyptian archaeological and conservation mission of Hatshepsut's temple. This is all the work, by the way. I said it was largely reconstructed. It's all the work of the Polish mission. They've been working here since 60s, 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, I think. Maybe 50s, not too far back. This is all relatively new. Should come up. The Ankh Digit, to give life for all eternity. Morning. So, sun's taking a little longer to come up than I thought. I hope my camera will stay on because my phone battery is low. But should be soon. So here you can see a Sphinx. This one's new. They just added this in the last year that I've been living here. This Sphinx has been here for a while. They're both reconstructions, just pieces of them that have been added on a mold to replicate what would have originally been here. Originally, this would have been lined all with Sphinxes, an avenue of Sphinxes, all the way down. And down there is the Nile. On the other side of the Nile is Karnak. And, oh, here comes the sun. Here it comes. Directly down the center of the path. Yeah. Karnak's back there. It would penetrate, it would illuminate the statue of her, then pierce through the shrine, through the obelisk, all the way across to here, behind here, to the tomb. And now let's just observe. And the beam is gonna come in and light up the Holy of Holies right back here. This is where we're gonna see the real magic. Few would have been able to see this back in the day. This would have been reserved for the high initiates, the highest of initiates. The priesthood and Pharaoh himself had access to the innermost sanctum, these parts of the temple. Only the highest initiates could come back here. So we're very fortunate that we get to come back here and observe this, walking in the footsteps, the path of the ancients. All these initiates before us.
ان شاء الله يتقسم.
No sun. Inshallah. Jason, thinking on a grand scale, absolutely. I mean, just even to the thought to survey all of this from here to Karnak. Yeah, it's very cloudy today. Look over here in the distance. There's some stuff you don't typically see. Look at that. You can't go over there. That's closed to the general public. Then there's a bunch of tombs over here as well. Senamut's up there with the astrological ceiling. Some real interesting tombs. Golden Page says the sun is inside you. Got that straight. We all have the fire within. We all have the light within. The immutable, inextinguishable light within. There's a light inside of you, inside of me, inside of all of us. So remember to let that light shine, son, because your essence is divine. Sun, where is the sun? Just beyond all those clouds. Low battery, 10%. Tomorrow there might be one more opportunity to see this. Let's see. I think the sun will pierce through shortly. Guess the ancient Egyptians didn't account for all the fog and clouds in 2022. These guys have given up. I'm gonna stick it out and we'll stay until the phone goes down. I have 10% left. I think we might see something. Exactly. A little bit of faith. I mean, worst case scenario, how bad could it be? We're still here. You get the spectacular view. Hatshepsut, Dio Bahati, Jessa Jessaru. Nobody is what, besides my wife and I, there's 2 other people here and the keepers, 2 other people observing. Nobody knows, so obviously not too many people know about this alignment or realize it's intricately connected to the one that everybody goes to see at Karnak. So right over here, if you visit, there's a little cafe, which will definitely charge you tourist prices. So you want to keep in mind, pro traveler tip, everything is negotiable in Egypt. You can always bargain. Obviously, you're going to be charged top tourist dollar first, but everything can be bargained for the most part. These guys are a little pricey. You're better off getting drinks and foods in the local village over here. This is where I live in the distance over here. So a little cloudy today, but I live right in there in the village. And so I can see the mountain and Hatshepsut's, the mountain for the Valley of the Kings behind me. And then on the other side, I'm kind of in the middle, I can see Luxor Temple across the water. Karnak's a little further away. I just dropped another episode of my Living in Luxor vlog series. If you've been following that, I haven't done one of those in a while. That's where I take you behind the scenes and show you what it's like, life here in Luxor, living in Luxor as an American expat with my family. And we just did another one, a night out. Is it safe in Egypt? A night out on the Nile. That episode was uploaded yesterday, so if you missed it after this live, you can go and watch that video if you're interested, or watch the whole playlist if you haven't seen it yet and you're interested in what it's like to live here in Luxor. And then, of course, I have all the other videos here on this channel, which are more the investigations into the ancient mysteries and covering, you know, ancient history, mysteries, and esoteric. Looking at ancient civilizations through an esoteric lens. And why is that? That is because, as far as I can see, ancient civilizations in many ways ran parallel with indigenous traditions. Our Western esoteric secret societies today, a lot of the principles, or the main principles that they observe and the teachings come from, you know, principles that are already inherent in ancient civilizations, in the indigenous traditions that still survive to this day, that have been around these ancient civilizations. I'm not a proponent of I don't think these archaeological sites are good evidence for aliens. And I'm not a proponent of these sites, particularly like this site that I'm at right now, being evidence. No one's really saying that, but evidence of an older or lost civilization. I do respect the work and mindset of the ancient Egyptian civilization. To me, it's clear that they embodied the sacred science as demonstrated by my mentor, John Anthony West, and Schwaller de Lubitz before him. And so to really study that, to better understand the ontology, the worldview of the Egyptians, how they were looking at everything. And they were looking at things through interesting lenses of nature, geometry, and, you know, when we can better understand what the ancients were up to, and we can learn from the past to project into the future. Knowing the past, we can recalibrate to manifest in the moment. And so it's always an interesting study looking at ancient civilizations, but I tend to do it through an esoteric lens, because that lens of esoteric tradition comes from indigenous traditions and ancient civilizations. I mean, if you look at the Rosicrucian tradition, which is a prominent order of mystics in the Western esoteric tradition, really, it can be argued both ways. There'll be some that say Masonry came out of the Rosicrucians. Others say Rosicrucianism came out of Masonry, because there used to be, well, there is a degree in the 1900s. Anyway, you'd obtain a Rosicrucian degree in Masonry, but really, if you study and look at the principles, I would say that Masonry came out of Rosicrucianism, and Rosicrucianism is, in a sense, the Western esoteric tradition. It's the culmination of all the mystery schools. This is the top of Hatshepsut's temple. And so, even in the Rosicrucian tradition, some prominent figures such as Paracelsus, father of medicine, you know, alchemist, all the alchemists, all the hermeticists and alchemists back in the day would, you know, reflect upon the literature of Paracelsus. And so he studied with indigenous traditions. You know, he was well-traveled. It was important for the learned to travel, to, you know, expand their mind. In a lot of ways, that's in part what the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz is about, you know, traveling, acquiring knowledge from different lands. So it's important to get out there and travel to expand your consciousness. It's something that I've realized, you know, on my own personal journey growing up in the Northeast of America, Boston, Massachusetts. It wasn't until I got out and started traveling around the States and eventually the world that I was able to expand my worldview and look at things differently. A lot of people where I come from never leave the area. They don't travel, you know, they maintain the same mindset. And so it's important to get out, meet different people, see different things, immerse yourself in different cultures, you know, put yourself in positions that you're not comfortable with, and learn how to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, that's really what it's all about. That's what it takes to evolve. You want to go up against the opposition. You want to go into the fire and face it head on and come out scorched and burnt anew, because fire is the initiating principle. In esoteric tradition and indigenous traditions, you burn, that people are scared of the fire, but that fire is what you use to burn something, to start anew. Everything goes in cycles. So looking at these ancient civilizations through the lens of the esoteric tradition is also getting closer to understanding the indigenous traditions, and you find many parallels. And so for me, being a student of the Western esoteric tradition and coming to understand or perceive these principles in different ways that originally I wasn't necessarily as open to because of my previous conditioning, institutionalized teachings and religion and so forth, you open up to looking at things in different ways, and you begin to understand principles through multiple lenses. And it's okay. You don't have to be so polarized. You don't have to get caught up in today's this or that. It's either this side or it's either this camp or that camp. You can view both camps with reverence and observe from a distance. It's okay. And so that's not, it doesn't seem like that's the current social conditioning that's going on today. It seems like it's the opposite. We're trying to place everybody in a category, and there's a lot of division. But ultimately, at the core, we're all unified, and that seems to be one universal understanding across cultures. But yeah, so traveling is key, and for me, taking the ideas of philosophers such as Pythagoras, the Pythagorean mystery schools, and looking at things in that way, taking Pythagorean number mysticism and applying it to the architecture. Why did they have a certain number of columns? Why did they have, and we go over all of this on my tours. We spend time here talking about the number symbolism. We talk about the color symbolism, the way light reflects. It's all important. When the average tourist comes here and they do the basic information, historical information and so forth, we go a bit deeper into the esoteric. We do that too, but then we get into the esoteric aspects, and that's what really sets my tours apart from others. In that sense. So if you're interested in joining us, Adept Expeditions is hosting the Esoteric Ancient Technology and Esoteric Symbolism Tour in March, co-hosting that with Johanna James from the Funny Old World YouTube channel. And then Johanna and I will be doing another tour together in October. And that is, we're going to see Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, Derinkuyu. That is the Ancient Technology and Esoteric Symbolism Tour of Turkey. So we have the Turkey tour in October, and we have March here in Egypt. Also, if you want to come to Egypt but can't make it out in March, every year I do a tour in September. This year I'm doing the Ancient Architecture and Esoteric Symbolism Tour with Matt Simpson from the Ancient Architects YouTube channel. This is your groundbreaking invitation to an unprecedented event. This will be Ancient Architects' first tour of Egypt that we're hosting, or he'll be co-hosting with me. And you can come out and meet Matt Simpson from Ancient Architects as we journey through all these sites together and go through the tour. It's going to be an amazing event. You can learn more about that tour, again, at adeptexpeditions.com. And finally, last but not least, this is the one a lot of people sleep on, but it's actually one of my favorite tours, the Mysteries of the Maya in the Yucatan. This is where my wife and I got married by way of a traditional Maya wedding ceremony at the Uxmal ruins, where they have the Pyramid of the Magician. We do an esoteric symbolist tour of the Yucatan, going through the Maya civilization. And so that tour, we do that every year in November, and it's usually a smaller group. I think it's getting a little more attention this year. It seems like a lot of my previous guests who have come on the Egypt trips, everybody that comes on my tours, they love the tours. A lot of repeat clients that come back, and now I have a lot of people that want to go to Mexico too. But it's going to be an amazing time. You can learn about all 4 of these tours at adeptexpeditions.com. And if you register, you can put your deposit down now. If you register for any of the tours before the end of the year, you'll save some money, because everything is going up January 1st, especially here in Egypt. Costs are just going up. Costs of private visits. That's the thing about these tours too. They're unlike other tours. There's special permissions, private access, VIP access. We're seeing things that general spectators and tourists can't see. You're going to have exclusive access in the enclosure of the Sphinx, and you're going to have access inside all 3 chambers of the pyramids. Speaking of pyramids, just got a question about tombs. It depends which pyramids you're talking about. There's undoubtedly pyramids, we know for a fact that were used as tombs. I'm not saying that's the only, personally, the Anyextee take is that they couldn't have been exclusively used as tombs. And I also think that we need to further develop our understanding of what a tomb is or could be. Like I've been doing a lot of videos on the Osiris shaft, which Zahi Hawass has dubbed the tomb of Osiris, at least that third level in the shaft there. And so it's a symbolic tomb of Osiris. It's not an actual burial. So a lot of people get that confused and think like somebody named Osiris is buried there. Osiris wasn't a person, it was a principle. It's quite possible that people have taken on that identity. That happens in Mesoamerica with like Kukulcan and Quetzalcoatl. People want to say that they were people. There were priests, shamanistic rulers that took on that name because they were embodying that principle. They were like that principle in the carnate form, but these principles were not men. They certainly were not bearded white men from antiquity that came and civilized the Mesoamericans. That's a story that needs to die fast because that's nowhere in the indigenous traditions. It's been weaved in at a later point. A lot of people don't realize when it comes to Mesoamerica, a lot of the codices and the texts, they were influenced by priests at a much later period. What's that?
I believe
It already happened.
yeah, but
It's the
it's just
clouds.
so cloudy tomorrow. It's
Yeah.
going to be clear.
So we come back tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll just have to come back tomorrow. It's going to be cloudy today, so there's snow. And I think I already saw it move, and it did a line there behind the clouds.
We-
A line to the door.
We were just talking about Kukulcan and coming to civilize Mesoamerica, or the idea of white bearded people coming to civilize Mesoamerica, and we're talking about the codices and how some of the texts have been influenced by priests. Anthony, you'd like to add from a Mesoamerican perspective?
I just think we need to be wary about even some of the texts that are out today, because like you said, they've been influenced by priests. There's a lot of truth to them. It's like half of the truth, and half of what was brought over by Europeans or Spaniards. So yeah, with that, there's still a lot of oral tradition mixed into that, and I think it was just woven with the Christian concepts as well. So we just need to verify sources, and I think from an indigenous perspective with actual indigenous people from Mexico. And there's a lot of books and archaeologists who are Mexican who are writing about the indigenous histories.
Yeah, it was
without-
disappointing not to see any Mexican archaeologists in Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling that episode.
Yeah, me either. I just thought it was very off-putting. It's just like, a lot of us, we are indigenous, so it's just like when you ask us about the spiritual perspective, or what a lot of people like to quote unquote call the alternative archaeology. As Mexicans, we first believe like in the spiritual realm. We're taught to believe that at an early age. So it was just strange that he couldn't find anyone willing to do that is an actual Mexican
Because in
person.
Mexico, they're more inclined to believe in spiritual
yeah, and
concepts than like a typical academic historian.
Yeah, and I
that-
know many people besides myself that actually, believe in a lot of these concepts that he was speaking about, maybe not in the terms of what the Western world.
Well, what's your
looks
take
at.
on like a white bearded civilizer coming to Mexico and
I mean, if you read the stories, it's just basically invented by the Spaniards, to kind of,
influence?
like create a dominance over the indigenous people. Like, okay, if we look at history, they came. The Kukulcan came by a boat, and he was white. What happened when the conquistadors came? They came by boat, and they were white. So if we just really think critically, you really know where that mythology or legend came from. It was from them.
What about the principle of what can you say about what Kukulcan means to you, or Quetzalcoatl as an indigenous person? What is Kukulcan? Was it a person, or can you explain it?
I think it was like it's it's here. It's like here in Egypt, they hold back in Mesoamerican um, times, in ancient times, it was a title, just like here. How they would name themselves. Like in the beginning, their title will be yeah,
Amenhotep comes from
Amenhotep.
Amun.
Amenhotep, or before Amenhotep, right? It was Montu, whatever, or Mentu. It's like
Yeah, like Montu was the deity, and then you have Mentu Hotep, who built this
Mentuhotep. Yeah,
this over here, what inspired this
we go
temple.
from to Tarian.
Amenhotep III is responsible for commissioning Luxor Temple of Man. Amen comes from
Exactly, you
Amun,
go
the
from
principle of
Taurus,
Amun.
to the Aryan Age with those names. But yes, this is like the same thing. You will hold the title of Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica as you progress through the levels.
But what is Quetzalcoatl? So you hold a title. So there were people that took on the identity, but for you, what do they represent? What's the
It's a
principle?
higher spiritual advancement, and that's basically, in Mesoamerican culture, you want to be, righteous, you want to be moral, and advance yourself as much as you could spiritually. And, I think right now that's a lot of the concepts that the world is missing, that is not, working towards a material world, but working to rectify yourself spiritually. And that's a big thing, I think, that too, like, that's missing a lot out of the context of when people talk about the history of Mexico. We don't talk enough about the spiritual aspects of, quote unquote, the priesthood, or like the degrees, things like that. Basically, the mystery schools in Mexico. It doesn't get talked or I mean, I guess I would say it doesn't get enough coverage, because look at who we're putting at the forefront to talk about these subjects. I mean, and probably not the best informed people. So, or the people that have the best interest of telling the indigenous side of the story. So
It's often not indigenous people that are telling the story, so it's important to give voice to indigenous people to
Yeah.
tell their story.
yeah, basically.
So I think that's gonna wrap it up. Amenhotep III, Father Akhenaten, and grandfather Tutankhamun. Yep, that's right. And they were some of the more prominent figures in the 18th dynasty that did building campaigns here in Luxor. What Egyptologists, preferably ones that predate 1900s, do you recommend? Any books specifically? Predate 1900s. Oh, there are a few, and Egyptological standards were different back then. So recommendations going back, I mean, read them all, even Sir William, Petrie. But that doesn't mean that he's going to be correct, or his, I think, for example, Petrie has done some amazing work, but Petrie was also very biased. He had, it's clear in his literature that there was a distaste for the local people. And so his mindset, we have to look at things, give consideration to the mindset and the ontology of that time. During the Victorian era, which were a lot of the early Egyptologists, they had Victorian era ideas that come from their own religion, their own background, their upbringing, that they brought to Egypt and applied and projected those concepts onto, ancient Egyptian concepts. In some ways, it's sort of like a culture clash, very similar to Europeans coming to Mesoamerica, not understanding what they're seeing. They're seeing somebody work with plants and animals in a way, and they're worshiping a totem. It's devil worship, or they're witch doctors, when in reality these witch doctors were actually very sophisticated shamanistic healers that were working with different energies that their oppressor couldn't fully comprehend at that time. So that's why it's important for us today to open our mind up to all of this stuff and look at things through various perspectives. So I'll read like Petrie, for example, but I'll also take into account that this is in many ways, it's a biased interpretation. Still good archaeological data. Petrie took a lot of measurements, and then you have to question all of that too. That's the thing about reading. It's great to read. I highly encourage it. I do it all the time, but you also have to realize it's like a catch-22. One of the things I learned while hanging around Manly P. Hall's Philosophical Research Society when I used to live in LA is that, you know, like, you are the book. You are the mystery school. So you can read all the books in the world and go through, you know, the world's libraries, but ultimately everything is within. You already have all the answers, and whatever you're reading, realize it was written by a man. Take it with a grain of salt, you know, and humans have agendas. So maybe they want to sell you tours, sell you more books, or they just want the applause, or whatever their intentions are. They're not always, you know, they're not always honorable intentions, keeping others in mind, you know. People are operating at all different frequencies. We're all unfolding at our own rhythm, coming from our own understanding and our own background. But it is, say, Victorian era Egyptologists with their limited understanding of the ancient world and their Victorian ideas that were projected into a lot of the early Egyptology. So I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head immediately. It depends. You would have to, like, which Egyptologist to read. It's really about picking a subject matter. So you'd more like, okay, if I wanted to learn about Hatshepsut's temple, which Egyptologist should I read? Or if I wanted to learn about something specific, then I could send you in a direction